Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. And if you're watching on YouTube and you see a little link down below, you can actually join the conversation directly by joining that and signing up for the Zoom session. If you're here as an attendee and you're watching all these panelists and you think that you might be able to have something better to say than what we have, then join. We open the doors at 6 o'clock and start discussing stuff. First, a half hour is just us warming up. At 6:40, we have the mic checks. And so we're going to hand out a Discord link. That's where all of us talk. And that expires when I start doing this announcement. But then we also do mic checks. And mic checks are making sure that you have good video, good audio, good internet. And so if you can be here by 6:40, you can join the panel and become part of the conversation. And we'd love to have you. Once we get to 7 o'clock, we have general Q&A. So from 7 until 8, we're going to have just general Q&A, and you have to put your questions in. As an attendee, that's your job, is to put your put your questions in. What are you struggling with in media production? It can be education, it can be media in general, live events. What are you dealing with? This is a place for you to get those questions answered, and some of your answers questioned. And so put those up there as you're trying to work through those, and we'll discuss them here. And then in the second hour, we have a more vertical discussion that we take on. And today we're going to be talking about musicians or live streaming for musicians. Victor's going to actually play some music for us, but we're going to have a general discussion about what it takes, some of the routing, some of the challenges that occur in that process, and how some of our folks here are overcoming those. So that should be a lot of fun. And then tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about what happens right before a live event and how we prepare for that. And then Saturday we have education, but those are different every day. Mondays are kind of a wild card. Tuesdays are audio. Wednesdays are video. And then we go into more artist-driven things on Thursdays, and then event-driven on Friday, and then education on Saturday. So anyway, that's the general flow. And I think we're going to go ahead and throw it to Bill. Bill, you ready to ask some questions?
All set. Ready? Doug Ferguson has the first one out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's asking, when trying to drum up new business, should I give them a budget range out of the gate?
I do the best I can not to give anybody budgets until I know what they actually want. so I will stay away. I will stay away from a budget until we actually, there's two things. One is you can scare them away because they wanted something simple and you sold, they wanted a Chevy and you sold them a Ferrari. The second side of that is that you sell them a Chevy and then it turns out that they wanted a Ferrari. And so what I try to do is get as much detail from the client as possible. The other part of that is you're developing your relationship with the client. So you're building up that relationship, you're building up trust, you're building up all those things that have them understand that you actually know what you're doing. But you want to have that conversation or those conversations, I think, before you have a conversation about money. Sky, then Bill, then Phil, then Jason.
I'm going to run on theory because I'm not good at it, but I've heard that value versus price. And if you're dealing with price, then you're competing with everybody else with a camera. Value is how can you solve their problem? So again, those are good theories. I look forward to hearing the rest of the people that have actually made money at it.
Go ahead, Doug. Doug, go ahead and explain it a little bit more, and then we'll go to Bill.
Yeah, so it's hard to, I don't want to make a long paragraph in writing the question, but we're actually, I'm targeting the production towards sports. So it's very specific that, hey, we got one client that's doing football. Now we want 6 clients doing football. So that was kind of, I've been sending
in that
out,
case,
I've been sending out other
really
schools, but like a range of, hey, to up your game in your production, this is the range. So that's kind of.
In that, I would say you're looking for a rate card. When you're talking about, I want to sell the same thing that I'm doing to other people, to lots of, I'm doing this for this client. I want to do it for all these clients. Then you really do want it to be cookie cutter for them. Like, a 4-camera shoot is this, a 5-camera, every camera after that is this much money. These are the things, and you figure out what part of that puzzle makes sense for you financially. And then you have a rate card so that they can just see what it's going to take for you to do it. I think that most of my work is bespoke, so I don't do a lot of, I don't replicate very often. most of the stuff that I do, someone comes in and we have to design something for them. So my approach tends to be explaining that to them. But if you're trying to replicate the same thing over and over again, I think a rate card is definitely the right way to go. Bill, and then Phil.
So my strategy evolved over the course of many years of being a sole proprietor doing my own stuff. So here's what I came down to. Two things. Somebody once told me late in my career that whoever gives a number first puts themselves at a disadvantage. I do believe that because of exactly what Alex is saying. If you're thinking it's a X thousand and the client is thinking 2X thousand, then by giving the number first, you put yourself at a disadvantage. But the other thing is that sometimes I really want the business and I really want to work with these people. So what I learned to do was this. I would occasionally say, most of my work is in the range between this dollar and this dollar. I have done things for specific clients as little as around this dollar. And my biggest project last year was way up at this dollar. I'm not giving them a specific idea, but I'm at least qualifying the client saying, if you're not playing in these ballparks, then it may not be the best relationship. And it kind of pins you, especially that big number. If you can say legitimately, I did a project last year that had a budget of, and it's a big budget, that gives you a certain gravity in the discussion.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bill. Our market where I live is so bad that a lot of it is just educating people like, no, this is what this stuff costs. And it's amazing that people won't even blink when a doctor or a lawyer has their rates, but you come to video production and it's like out of the ballpark when you throw a number out and they just come back and like, what? Like, no, we can't do that.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I think to what you're just saying, Doug, you can save a lot of time for both people if you do mention some sort of a range right off the bat. Part of that initial discussion with a potential client is me evaluating them as a client as well. How bad do I want them? How valuable do I think they might turn out to be for various reasons? And if they sound like they're just shopping and maybe even just getting educated about what does something like this cost, it can be very helpful to throw a range, even make it a little high, so that if they don't call you back, you realize it wasn't worth your time. So, it's kind of a dance that you do with that initial client to kind of say, do I really want to spend a lot of time before I give a number, or do I want to just cut to the chase and say, hey, you're probably be more comfortable eating at McDonald's than, you know what I mean? As a
I've gotten a lot of jobs trying to scare clients off that I didn't expect.
Right.
I'd be like,
and that can fast track that too.
That's 40 grand. And they'll be like, sure. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, right.
Now I got to figure out how to do it.
But it saves you a lot of time.
It does. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, the vast majority is somebody who does this maybe 3 or 4 times a day. I always want to spend maybe 30 minutes on the phone with somebody and say, look, it's important to me that we figure out if we are a good fit for each other. Because if we're not, then we're wasting each other's time. So at the end of the day, it really, really matters that you get a sense of them, because know it or not, they are auditioning to you as well. You want to get a sense of how specific their idea of it is. And most of my revenue has not come from what I've been hired for initially. That's the other thing to really pay attention to.
And remember, when someone just walks away from something, I've talked about this equation many times, and I'll say it one more time, that action will always occur when possibility is greater than circumstance. So what you're looking at when you're having a conversation with a client is they have a set of possibilities, what they're going to get out of this, and they're going to have a set of circumstances, what they think and your price is one of them, right? And so when you have a conversation that possibility goes over the circumstance that they had, which is how much it costs or whatever, they have to know what they're getting out of it. Another way to say that is, what is their ROI, return on investment, right? So you want to look at, when you're talking to them, you're trying to talk to what is their return. You have to, just saying you're going to do their game in a vacuum doesn't get them anything. They have to figure out, are they going to get more advertisers? Are they going to get more attendees? Where is the revenue going to go that's going to cover what you're doing? And understanding where that possibility is for them and looking for that. And that's part of my conversation with a client, is figuring out what are their circumstances and what are their possibilities. What are the things that's stopping them, and what are the things that they want out of this. And when you can start pulling on those strings, people very quickly will move forward because you're actually solving their problem. And that might be indirect as well. I've had ones where I have clients that come in and they go, well, I don't have the money for that. Well, then what if I go find the money for it? And what I mean by that is I find a sponsor that wants to sponsor those shows, right? And so then it's no cost to them. I need access to the event, and that's possibly another way to slice that. Go ahead, Sky, and then Roscoe.
I'm just curious, Alex, about the decision maker. And the challenge, of course, is, are we talking to the right person, or is the right person talking to us? Or do they have to go sell it to who and how much? And so I guess my question, are you talking to the marketing department? You're talking to the public relations?
I talk to, it just depends on who calls. I'm talking to lots of different people though. When you're talking, when I'm talking to folks, it can be a wide variety of folks within a company. It's oftentimes many. I think at the height of PixelCore, I think we were working with 9 divisions at Google, and from each division's perspective, we were only working with one. Like not that we didn't tell them, we just treated them like they were one client, and usually we work very hard to have our clients not feel like there's any other client. Like we're as far as they feel that we're their agency, and they're the only ones in our ballpark. We do. And I've got other meetings, I've got busy, I'm da-da-da-da. There's a temptation to want to be a used car salesman about stuff. Oh, I got all this work and I got all these things. We tend to go the other direction, which is they just feel like there's a vacuum and they're in it, and regardless of other things that may be going on.
And you also mentioned you are their agency, you're not their cameraman. And so you gave a much broader appeal to
there's a whole other
single thing.
There's probably another hour to talk. I'm talking more to Doug because I know that he's a producer. He's got the gear, but he's producing events and selling those events. If there's a whole hour to talk about, there's probably a whole hour about, if you're a producer, how to interact with the client. Here's another one that's how to interact with your crew. There's probably another one of being a crew member. And we should probably think about breaking those into a couple different hours because it's probably a useful conversation.
Vote that up.
Yeah, put that in the second hour so I don't forget. I just say things here and then I forget what I said. Courtney and then Roscoe.
Yeah, one thing hadn't been mentioned yet, and it was a problem here in my location. If there's a lot of competition in the area where you are, and it doesn't happen as much anymore because we used to get phone calls, and I'd always get phone calls, and I've never heard of the production company or something that was calling me before, and I'd always wonder, oh, is this one of my competitors here to find out what my rates are so he can offer a competitive rate on something else? So it's in a cutthroat market like Hollywood, that you have to watch out for that. That doesn't occur that much anymore because most of our requests for rates and quotes come in through email these days, and I can check out whoever it is, and if they're a legitimate company and not a competitor of ours, then I can respond with a quote.
The thing that I try to avoid at almost all costs is competitive bidding. I try to stay out of that world as much as I possibly can. In fact, generally, if a client says that, well, I had this bid and it was this much less, I pretty much drop the line. Like I don't even respond. After that I go, okay, well then you should use them. And then that's it. I'm done with that client, because a client that is competitive bidding me into that system is commoditizing my services. And what I'm about is, I'm trying to build something for them and build a relationship and be the best, create the best event they could possibly have. And that's a different kind of a thing, and no matter what we're doing, I don't hire DPs or audio engineers or anything else based on price. I'm not trying to find competitive or teleprompt operators. I hired Michelle, who was in yesterday, because she does a great job. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what Michelle's rate is. Like our producers handle that, or that happens somewhere else. I don't know what Michelle's rate is. I don't know what she's charging me. I don't care, because when my clients come in, I bring the best people for each thing that I can find, and I figure out a rate that makes sense for them. But that's where I'm not saying it was very hard to get there, but I'm saying that that's what you want to try to get to, and we can, again, that's a whole nother hour that we'll probably pass through. I know we have lots of hands. Let's save this for another hour and just talk about it, because Doug is a killer question, and shift things around since they're on, since the cement is still soft for next week. I'm going to shift a couple things around. So next week we'll set up a whole hour about it because it's a great killer question. We've already used 16 minutes. All right, next question.
Ken Jones is in with what's the most suspicious factor that causes audio level to change from day to day on the program here at office hours? And we've seen this a lot when all of us come in day after day. We haven't changed anything, but we need to do that mic check to get things right.
I think our systems change. A lot of us are not doing this every day in the same place. I think Zoom is constantly updating how it handles it. Also, whether our mics are open or not, whether we're using original audio or not. I know the one that makes it mine the most stable is if I just make sure I have original audio on. If I forget to do that, I have no idea what's going to happen. Go ahead, Jeff, and then George, and then Mickey, and then Jason.
If you're not wearing a headset mic, distance to mic is going to be a big change. I know that today I had a change, and I've been using Pile directly into the ATEM so I can recall my ATEM settings, and they've been consistent for day after day after day, except today I had to drop things 3 dB because yesterday I used this system for something else, and I turned stereo audio on doing a music thing. So, and now I've turned stereo audio back off, and Zoom is reacting differently. So Zoom is oftentimes an issue.
Zoom has a very complex audio pipeline, like the most complex one of any of these services. It is the most complex audio pipeline. It gives us the most control, but it also is the most complex. And so there is, we're dealing with figuring that out. With great power comes great responsibility. Go ahead, George.
So Mickey, like yesterday and the day before, he's like, well, adjust your audio. But I think and Jeff hit it on the head, I'm using the PR40 on a boom. So it depends on where I swing it the next day. My audio is going to be either a couple of dB up or down. So I guess, like Alex said, it's probably best wear a headset versus, something that's going to move around from every day.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, definitely everything that Alex mentioned, especially like regarding people's setups changing. Like we use our gear. Like I pared this whole thing down like 2-3 times a week. But I think a huge factor as well is just the speaker. For most of you guys, it's probably like 7 a.m. there or sometime in the morning. You're getting up. Like our state of minds are different every day. Like a guitar player during sound check will play totally differently like 30 minutes later during the actual show. So like it's gonna vary. That's why like on actual shows, like real productions, you want someone on the fader there to react to the different the different levels that you get and the different performances that you get.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Jason.
I would say of all my hardware chain is entirely hardware. And I've been all over the place like everybody else. I would say the largest variable is the speaker, period. No way around it. That's just how it is. We don't resonate the same way when we just woke up, or even if it's at the same time of day. We're more variable than we think we are.
Well, I've known artists actually will not do voiceovers after 12 midday. They like to do their voices early doors in the morning.
I do all my voiceovers first thing. Like if I get hired to do a voiceover, I do in the first hour and a half is what usually when I do it, just because my voice sounds the best. Next question.
Phil Langer from the panel here in New York says, posting a video to YouTube, trying to schedule it to go live at 5 p.m. He clicked on schedule button and entered 5 p.m., but it didn't show up. Had to hit the publish button manually. Anyone have experience making this work?
So there's two things, Phil, there with scheduling. There is, when you schedule it, when you're scheduling a YouTube event, you are setting a time for the timer on the event.
Not a live event.
He's talking about Premiere.
Yeah. Oh, Premiere. You're trying to Premiere. Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Now, my understanding is Premiere is for synchronized watching, right? Is there Premiere different than just a scheduled release?
Well, I don't do scheduled releases. So, Jason, did you have more?
No, not really. All I can say is that Google is really messing with this right now, and it'll be different next week.
It's all over the place. Okay. Jeffrey, and then Oliver.
Okay, so I Premiere videos all the time. The idea of Premiere
is to get out the word that, hey, I'm going to have something. When I do a video, a review or something like that, I will premiere a video over, just put it out there. That way I can then go to Twitter and stuff like that and say, hey, this is coming, and it's going to come at 5 o'clock Central. Now, with that said, when you schedule a premiere, you put in the time, and there's 2 times. It doesn't do 20. I think it does 24 hours actually. Now I'm thinking about it. So you got to make sure that you're doing 5 p.m. as opposed to 5 a.m.
Right.
The schedule will instantly go the next day. So if you're doing it for that day, you have to switch it back to. So in this case, you'd switch it back to October 8th, and then a time after the current time you are on. Also, there's a time zone area that you need to check into. Make sure you're on the right time zone, or else it's thinking that it's already passed and therefore it won't schedule.
But is there a difference between a premiere and a non-premiere?
The non-premiere will just simply play it once you hit the publish button, whereas a premiere will wait until that time.
There's a schedule button. I can hit a schedule button, put in the time, and not hit premiere.
Yeah, and then there's a straight up premiere, which will allow you to. It'll wait like 2 minutes, and then it'll premiere it just like it would. It would figure it as scheduled a minute from now, as opposed to your time.
The difference between a premiere, I believe the difference between a premiere and a scheduled post is scheduled post is the whole video is available right then. You can scrub through it. The premiere is actually playing it live at that specific time.
And if I premiered and a viewer joins 3 minutes into it, they'll see it at
3
the 3 minute mark.
More like an event.
Right.
Like an event. Yeah. It was the reason that Premiere was brought into, because we were getting paid a lot to just run videos out, at a certain time, because what they wanted was a unified chat experience. That's usually why you do it. I mean, to me, that's the value of a premiere, is everyone's at the same playhead at the same time. So it gives them that experience like they would if you're premiering a whole movie, for instance. People can be chatting about it through the whole thing. It'd be much like Netflix Party, where everyone can watch it and talk through it while they're the chat is unified to the content. And that's the big advantage, I think, of Premiere. Otherwise, you just schedule post makes sense. I don't know if a Premiere makes sense if you're not again.
Yeah.
To me, my weird little filter is that all live is only for interactivity. So if you're not being interactive, there's no reason to do it. Oliver, were you going to say something?
Everything has been said. So
okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I have 2 points. Google adds an additional 2-minute countdown clock on Premiere. At least that's been my experience. And then you also get to that was it. So that's the biggie.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
The other thing with Premiere, as opposed to a regular just publish or schedule publish, is how the chat works, and that might be a factor.
Okay, thank you.
I'm too superstitious. I don't like it to be a machine. I don't like it automatically doing anything. So especially YouTube right now, it's not stable. It's hard to say that because YouTube was the safe space for us for streaming for a long time, and they are now in a chaotic mode.
What
like every day I open it, I don't know what I'm going to be looking at. It's like Facebook. like you open it up and you're like, no, there's 6 new tools and I don't know how to use any of them, and this one will break my stream. And
that is my distribution platform. But that's not goofy. Just the way YouTube is
no. They keep changing the layout, the settings.
Yeah, the layout is constantly changing, the rules and the process and everything else. It was stable for a long time, and they're trying to innovate, but I don't know. This is like don't mistake movement for progress. Anyway, next.
LiveView just put out a post saying that they completely missed on that whole live stream, and they're feverishly working on a fix for it.
What did live stream?
LiveView it did not heed the October 1st, and apparently their system broke, and so a lot of people can't stream to YouTube right now through LiveView.
Oh. All right. Next question.
Chris S. from Atlanta is here with any recommendations on a hardware streaming encoder that speaks SRT and RTMP. Rented a Teranex Cube 755 and it was solid, but I don't want to miss out on a better option before committing to that one.
The most popular one is a Meraki. A Makito, a High Vision Makito. It's not cheap, but that is the one that, if you're really looking for a piece of hardware that just does that and not software based, the Makito is the one that High Vision is the one that kind of pushed the SRT, and they do RTMP. Go ahead, Beju.
Yeah, I've been looking at this question as well. And basically, if you need 4K, probably the High Vision and the Wowza Clearcast are probably your only options, and the Videon Vera Streamer. They're
Does
the only three ones
Wowza do SRT? Or does the
I
Clearcaster do
believe it
SRT?
does. I believe it does. Guy saw it in the settings. I think he was going to test it. I don't know if he's had a chance to do it yet or not. It has that you can do direct SRT out of it. There's an option in the settings there for custom encoding. And you can do receive as well. After that, there is the Videon Versa Streamer 4K that can do 4K encode decode. It can do SRT, RTMP. I think it can do about 5 or 8 different types of streams at the same time, so which is handy, like if you need to do local network and stuff. For HD, KiloView seems to be the go-to right now. Cheap and cheerful, I think, seems to be like the E1 and the E2. HDMI or STI, that's about 350 US right now. It can do SRT, NDI, HX, and RTMP at the same time. And they seem pretty handy and pretty stable because I believe KiloView is the OEM for NewTek for the Spark series. So it's the same hardware with a little bit of their own software on top.
That was one dense answer, Beju. That was great. Well played. We definitely hit into his area of strength there. Stuart.
Yeah, I spotted the same. I was about to say the same thing about KiloView that Beju just did. But for the absolute bargain basement one, and I'm going to see if this works with NDI, this is a brand by the name of Uray. Uray are the people who do all the generic SRT and RTMP encoders, and that actually worked. But if your budget is like really limited, they're 100% reliable. They're the ones that all the other brands are rebranding as their own.
Got it. And the video on hardware is pretty stable, so it's a pretty good one. I know we're doing a bunch of tests with their stuff right now in 4K, and it's working well. Next question.
Somebody
Jason, you were going to say before Jason, real quick.
Sorry to break up. For those of you who are Blackmagic fans, it looks like they just dropped a HyperDeck firmware update that adds UHD and it could be HDR for Ultra HD recordings. So just something to look at for the HyperDeck Mini.
Oh, for the Mini, that would be
useful.
Yeah, because we're stuck with the 12G right now. It's the only one we can do HDR output. By the way, I can say now why I've been doing so much HDR stuff. So if you go up to the App Store and download Dolby Summit, so look for the app in the App Store, either for your Apple TV or for your iOS device. There's a thing up there called Dolby Summit. That's what you want to search for on iOS. It's only iOS and tvOS. It will be the first live stream in Vision and Atmos. So they let me they let me talk about it. So so it is, and I got to tell you, boy.
Oh, it is so
amazing.
cool.
Like it is so amazing. Like it's just there's a test file that we got into the app there, so that if you don't have Vision and Atmos, you won't be able to play it. So it'll be just like you can't do this. But if you have a Vision and Atmos.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the AirPods Pro, if you have an AirPods Pro and you can do it that way. You don't need Atmos.
No, so if you have a newer iOS device, or it'll work the last 2 generations, I think. And then if you have obviously a tvOS that's there, you can download it. But anyway, but a lot of the tools are still a work in progress, and one of the things is the HyperDeck is a work in progress as far as getting all the channels out and everything else. And so it's good that they're moving that direction. But I definitely it's gonna be one of those few things where we're probably not going to do a morning on the 29th, the day of that event. I am going to encourage all of you to come to my event because it's going to be cool. You can definitely see it, and there's a different version of Mukana that will be available on the phone, so you can ask questions. And so I'm hoping that everyone will come and
so the 29th
check
then,
that out.
Alex.
Sorry?
29th.
The 29th. Yep, there it is. Yeah, and you can't put the code. The code's not available yet. We're still testing it. So, but yeah, if you hit, you should be able to hit the play button. There you go. See, there you go, and then it will. Your phone isn't Atmos
Yeah, the demo works, but you need AirPods Pro.
Or you need it needs to be a Vision ready phone. I'm not sure. Yeah. So the there you go. Yeah, that's the John Preto showing and it's a pretty cool demo. So anyway, yeah, I think it'll be something we're going to, after, most likely after we do the event. One of the reasons it's going to be worth watching it is after we do the event, I'll probably get some, either through Dolby or in here or both, be able to do a Q&A and talk about what it took to do that. So anyway, it'll be fun for you guys, and the content is great.
Can you
there's
only
incredible discussions. What?
Can you only view the event on an iOS device, or
no, you can watch it everywhere else. You just can't. That's where the app is. So you'll be able to watch it on a web page. You'll watch the stream, and it's just in regular SDR H.264. So you can definitely watch the whole event. But a lot of the
chat with
discussions.
Mikana through PC too. Great.
Yeah, it'll be any phone, Android. It's just the web page, just like this mobile version of this. You'll be able to open up the mobile version with the URL, and so you can definitely chat on desktop or phone or whatever, and you'll be able to chat and ask questions, and you'll get a chance to do some Q&A with the experts, and some of the content is pretty deep. So I would highly recommend thinking through that. Anyway, that's it. What do we got next?
Somebody named Mickey in the Philippines says, "Hi, panel, long time listener, first time." What are your favorite rack mount computer cases to build in?
Anyone have any strong opinions about their computer cases to build in?
Not really. I mean, it's in general, cache is king. I don't have a specific. Generally, I don't build enough of them to go, oh, this one every time. I find that price tends to determine price and cooling.
Stuart?
Aluminium is lighter than steel, but always on all rack mount cases, check the edges of any piece of pressed steel inside the case, because a lot of the places they don't trim the edge, and you will cut yourself silly putting stuff in there. But I would always look for a rack mount case that has 2 or 3 power supply slots.
And one of the things that we think about a lot is just how big it is related to how quiet it is. So I tend to, when we're building them, we tend to be 4 or 5 U because we want them to be nice and quiet. When you get down to 1 U, you end up with high performance fans that work, but they're a lot louder. And so it just depends on what we're doing, whether we care whether they're louder. 1 U works fine for most of our things, depending on how many cards we have to put in. We have a couple of them that we had to put like 4 graphics cards in, so then it becomes more complicated. Go ahead, Courtney.
Depends on if you're talking about flight cases or just stuff that lives in a rack. But for flight cases, if your weight becomes a big issue these days, because the airlines have just jacked up their prices for additional luggage, and that you're not sending air freight. I found the Gator, their polyethylene molded cases, they're very lightweight for what they are. They're not the greatest in shock mounting. They do have shock mounted cases that have rubber bumpers that suspend the cage, the rack mount cage on the inside. So you got about 2 inches of rubber cushioning inside to cushion all the stuff, but you got to watch out for vibrations when you travel, and make sure when you open it up that everything is still screwed in, because the screws tend to back out if they have any kind of high vibration involved. But yeah, I use the Gator cases, and other than that, we've used Pelican for many years, but they don't make that many. The polyethylene cases, which are the Pelicans, are very heavy for their size. They get.
And Mickey, are you trying to do mobile or in the office?
Rack mount, like in a machine room.
Okay, yeah.
Then just ignore everything I said.
Then and then the other thing I would say is that if it's in a machine room, I would also go back to like a 1 or 2 U, depending on what you're doing, just to keep it dense. There's to keep the density up. If you don't care about how loud it is. Because ours sound like jet engines, like the one, a lot of ours that are really pushing. You just know when you're turning them on, especially the elementals, which we don't build, but those ones are done by super micro, and you can hear them as they warm up from other rooms. Sky, and then Stuart, and then Mickey.
Mine was a travel option as well, if you needed wheels and the tables and things. But my real question was going to be, you mentioned Carnet the other day, and also, is it fork proof or forklift proof? Because I've had cases show up with A gouge right through the middle.
Have we done a second hour on shipping? Did we do one of those, or do we just have long answers?
Way back when, I think we did.
Okay, maybe we'll. Yeah, okay, we'll think about that. Go ahead, Stuart.
I'll digress before I get to the answer. Sky, I've heard about classic cars that's happened to. It's horrific. But two things for Mickey is there's no place in a rack mount for RGB. Pretty lights don't make the computer work faster. Secondly,
Mickey's
look
not
for
the
a
kind.
case
Mickey's not that kind of guy.
easy. Yeah, look for a case that's real easy to change or remove the what do you call it? The filter on the front of it, because you will be doing it a lot.
Excellent. Next question.
George Kennedy, our panelist from a long time, says, Mickey, I need to attempt to bring audio into the ATEM Mini from the MixPre 6. Would using a DI give me the right balance? And note, I have a few Whirlwind DIs in my kit.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I think Victor might be able to answer this better than I would, because he's the one who's actually been feeding audio from an ATEM into from a MixPre into an ATEM. But all you need is a decent mini jack cable, like 3.5 mil to 3.5 mil cable. You just have
TRS,
to,
right? TRS.
Yeah,
one.
just TRS to get both channels in. Get a good one with decent shielding. Make sure the length is not more than like 2 meters. And you should be golden. Make sure you calibrate it, line them up, send tone from the MixPre into the ATEM, and and have them come calibrated to the same reference level. Victor has done the trick of sending a hotter signal out of the MixPre. I think you ended up with 13 dB hotter, Victor.
Yep.
And then essentially have your reference level coming out of the MixPre hotter than nominal. But yeah, no need for a DI, because it's just the same unbalanced connector into the same unbalanced connector.
And Jason, what are you showing there?
All right, so this is from Monoprice, and I can't see whether or not I've got the focus right. Looks like I don't, but Monoprice does a completely solid passive direct box that'll do stereo, dual mono, and some mono. And what I like about this one is it really doesn't mess with the level. I mean, all of them mess with the level a little bit, but I've found for $20, you really can't beat this piece.
Cool.
Is it transformers inside there, Jason, or have you opened it up?
Haven't taken it apart, but I mean, I would assume that they're all transformers, aren't they? I mean, I guess you could just do it with resistors. I'm not sure.
Resistor. A lot of them cheaper ones are just resistor networks and capacitor isolation. But
I'll pop the top and tell you.
How light is it?
Transistor.
Yeah,
All right,
if
next
it's
question.
heavy, it's likely to be transformed.
No, next question.
Stuart Fairweather from Melbourne, Australia, and here on the panel says, panel's opinion of the AJA PCIe cards with only one metric involved in this. He wants to talk reliability.
I think that the AJAs are probably, there's two things. One is they're probably the most reliable cards we use. Number two is the customer service is stellar. I mean, what you're paying for when you pay for AJA is that that they're going to stand behind the product. They're going to do whatever they need to do. You're going to get fast customer service, and it's going to work. So that's been our experience with AJA for critical pieces. I admit that we use a lot of Declan cards because they're less expensive, but on some of the mission critical stuff, we put the AJA ones because I know that they'll be sorted quickly. Stuart.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at buying a second-hand card because of the price difference, because the new ones cost more than my Scion camera. But just on reliability, my experience so far as admin of the Scion user group is we only know of 3 cameras worldwide that have been returned to AJA for like an RMA, and 2 of those were faulty sensors. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be spending my money wisely, but it's secondhand, so I thought I'd ask.
Secondhand's a little different because it's not warranted, but even then we've had stuff that's out of warranty. We definitely bought it, but it's out of warranty. Like the analog, the DAs, the SDI embedder, D embedders on AJA occasionally will start clicking over long periods of time under a lot of use. And we've always found, we just send it back to them. They send us a new one. It's like 3 or 4 years old. You know, they just sort it out. But what you're paying for there is that they put all that extra effort into it. You know, go ahead, Jason.
Alex, I'm wondering, because I've had many Duo 2s over the years. How do you find that the Blackmagic cards fail?
We haven't had them fail for a long time. A lot of times we would just have, you know, generally most Blackmagic stuff stopped, which just wasn't working when it came. Like you just couldn't see a channel, you know. And the other thing is that Blackmagic is the one thing about AJA that we really like is the software interface of knowing what's going on. Blackmagic isn't as good at that. They've just never put the money into building a nice interface that tells me here are your inputs and this is what's going out and this is how you're processing it. That little AJA panel has been super useful for us for when we're trying to figure something out in real time. Being able to see that software panel has been key. You know, so it's not so much that it's not working; it's that we don't know what's happening. You know, and a lot of times that software panel has saved us of understanding why something is there, and being able to actually interact with that. But I haven't had cards die for a long time. They used to die; they used to just stop working, but that was a decade ago. You know, the quality control of Blackmagic has gotten significantly better over the last 5 or 6 years. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I agree. In the early years, Blackmagic and several of the other manufacturers used to have a problem because they'd use surface mount BNC connectors that connected to the motherboard with just a surface solder. And so many, you know, after 30 or 40 or 100 plugins of a BNC connector, it'd break loose a solder joint. So
and that's why we use, that's actually, that specific reason is why we use convenience panels. That's how why we got obsessive about it, was to keep you from doing 100
inserts and removals. Yeah. So if you've got a portable box that you're plugging stuff into and out of every day, open the box up and look at how the connector is connected to the motherboard. And if it goes through a hole, then it'll be a lot more. It's not going to completely eliminate the problem, but it'll be a lot more stable and a lot less fail.
The other thing that to note about Blackmagic cards is one of the reasons they're less expensive is a lot less reclocking going on and a lot less, stuff that's going on in the card. Because it makes it cheaper and more efficient to build. But if you have long video runs going into your computer, you'll find that the AJA will pick up a signal nice and clean in a place that a Blackmagic device in general will not. The Blackmagics will start dropping signal and say, I can't connect to it or whatever. And then we plug it into an AJA product and it immediately sees it. And that has to do with extra processing that's going on in all of their products that Blackmagic doesn't do, that saves you money. So if you don't need to do that, you don't need to worry about it. so I, but that is one thing. Long cable runs and Blackmagic don't mix as well as they do with AJA products. Next question.
Tim Corbin from Baltimore, Maryland asks, Alex or others, for your produced Zoom-based meetings, how are you bringing in each guest? Is it ISOs of each guest?
I think we missed one. Can we? I think we missed Jeff Francis's.
I'm sorry.
Up.
Okay, pop up to the top there. Yeah, okay. Jeff Francis from Columbia, and here on the panel, says routing sound into a camera is great for sync, but sometimes causes a ground loop. Are there ground shield lifters, isolators for HDMI and Coax like there are for balanced audio lines? And if so, does anybody have any favorites?
Go ahead, Mickey, and then Jason.
So as with HDMI and SDI connections, the signal routing through them are digital signals. So the noise that could be picked up through the actual cable, the line, will not get into the signal. Now, what I think could be happening is that you have varying paths to ground. Current wants to find the easiest and shortest path to ground. Now, if there are differences between that, that's when you can have current running through the line, and that causes the hum.
But is it right where is the loop happening where depending on how the camera is plugged in? So do you lose the ground loop when you unplug the camera when it's on battery?
Yes. And if I lift the shield on the audio, I can, break that ground loop. But I'm wondering if you can do that on the video side. Is there a way to do that on HDMI that you can break the shield there rather than the audio chain?
I'm
used to hunting down ground issues, no problem, but
yeah, Yeah, go ahead.
Is it only an audio fix, not a video?
It's an analog, because it's existing in the analog audio.
Yeah, it's happening on the DAC. Like, that's the issue. So lifting the shield on the HDMI wouldn't make any difference.
It's not happening in the digital. It's happening in the fact that we have two paths to ground. And so I can break the path on the audio side, but I'm wondering, could I break the path to ground on the video side and still get video?
Yeah, good.
I'm assuming I can't do that on coax because it's unbalanced.
Once you commit to the SDI or HDMI, it's in the digital signal. There's not any place to get it out. It's now part of the record.
Yeah,
so,
the buzz is being digitized. That's the way to think about it.
Yeah,
no, but it's not that the buzz is being digitized. It's breaking the ground loop to prevent the buzz from happening. But can you break the ground on HDMI and still get signal? That's the question.
I know of.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, the lifting ground to me would be sort of like fixing the issue with a Band-Aid. I would try to have the power sources. You mentioned earlier that the buzz goes away when the camera is on battery, and like as Jason mentioned, it seems that it seems that it's happening at the analog to digital conversion or within your camera. So I would try to keep the same power sources as much as you could, like the same power circuit.
Everything's on the same circuit. Yeah.
Okay. To that, maybe it might work, but try to diversify. That sometimes, for some reason, also works. Like, try powering different things off different circuits. It's weird, but sometimes it helps.
And depending on how long your event is, the thing to also remember in a pinch. I wouldn't make this my standard operating procedure, but in a pinch, a UPS will drive a camera for a very long time. Just a camera plugged into the draw is so small, and the UPS battery, you have a giant battery out there. You just set it down and plug it in. It'll last days sometimes.
Yeah, just don't get one of those that beeps when it gets unplugged, because that'll be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, exactly. We actually surgically remove them. From some of our stuff is we just pull them out so that they don't. We take them apart and pull the beep out. Courtney and then Stuart.
Yeah, there are no real ground lifters for HDMIs because there's so many ground. Yeah. Each input is grounded. Each wire that travels down the thing has a ground around it. But you can. The option that hasn't been mentioned yet is fiber optics. And so if you go into a fiber converter and convert it to fiber and then go in via fiber, then you have no ground connection between the two pieces, and that eliminates any kind of ground loop problem. Although it is an expensive solution.
I still think that the ground loop problem you're having is between whatever's supplying the audio and the camera, not over the SDI signal.
Right. And the other thing I want to point out is change power supplies, because there's a lot of these cheap power supplies, a lot of manufacturers, including with cameras and any type of equipment that comes with a wall wart or a brick. They don't have sufficient power smoothing in their high frequency switcher power supplies, and that you can get artifacts down in the audible range that can leak into your ground. And it may not be 60 hertz, it may be a slightly higher frequency, but you can watch out for that.
And Jason, not Jason, Jeff, you're certain that the ground loop issue isn't happening between the mixer and the camera?
That's where I'm fixing it. Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is.
But if you unplug HDMI from the camera to the ATEM Mini, then the audio is clean at the camera.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a ground loop. It's two paths to ground, but you can only break it in the audio. And I'm just asking, is there any way to break those in the video? It's making a second ground connection through the HDMI, and there's no way to break that.
That's fascinating. Okay,
I've never had that one.
Yeah, that's it. Stuart, I misunderstood it until right now.
Toss the ATEM's power supply, because it's grounding through the HDMI and into the camera instead of through the ATEM's power supply.
That's true. You could power through USB-C.
It'd be something to try. See if that.
The ATEM doesn't power through USB-C though.
The ATEM Mini. Is it an ATEM or an ATEM Mini?
Well, ATEM the Mini does. The Mini Pro doesn't.
Yeah, it's the Pro.
Okay. Well,
I would seriously look at a dead power supply.
Yep. Next,
Yeah.
that's good. It's a good question. We'll have to keep on thinking about it.
Yeah, one thing I did discover I need to pursue a little farther is that actually connecting the ATEM line input, the mic, the 1/8-inch ones, not using it for audio, but connecting it into the same audio and grounding that way helped the problem. So I'm going to research that a little more. So I didn't unmute that channel, but just plugging that connector in and having a ground through the 1/8-inch TRS.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that run a separate ground wire from attach it to a screw or something on the ATEM and run it to ground.
I'll let you know what I find out.
Yeah, please come back as you work through this. We're really interested. At first I was like, I don't know why we're like it's definitely between the mixer and the camera, but if it's now that I'm clear that's over the HDMI, that's a whole new problem. So let's keep talking. Let us know what you come up with.
It's just when you actually connect the HDMI that you get the problem.
Right.
But
got it.
I need HDMI.
Yeah, exactly.
And we should probably mention here that we've been talking about signal grounds exclusively. For God's sakes, do not remove the ground from your AC line coming in to get a problem like that fixed. That is a very bad idea.
Yeah, speed round. Let's go. Speed round.
Okay. Tim Corbin from Baltimore. Alex, you produced for your produced Zoom-based meetings. How are you bringing in each guest? ISO of each guest, each coming in on a separate machine, and then screen scrapes that you can mix however you want for the other guests and content?
Yeah, for what we do, it's a guest coming in on each guest has their own machine. It's a Zoom room, and so they pop in and they come in at 1080. We have to scale up the image 105% to get rid of the little connection icon on the lower corner, and then otherwise those outputs it is a screen scrape because Zoom doesn't see the decklink card, so it is grabbing an HDMI out of the second screen, which you can define what you want on first screen and second screen. That's converted to SDI immediately through a little Blackmagic HDMI to SDI converter. That goes into our switcher, and then it's just a show after that. To us, it's just another camera input. Jason, really quickly.
Yeah, real quick. Zoom sees my Decklink Duo too. That's interesting.
For output or input?
Oh, for input.
Input, it sees it just fine. Clever. Yeah, they all have. Yeah. It's the output that doesn't see. So that's the challenge is getting it out of the Decklink is what we want.
I've got an app for you that's pretty stable. I'll tell you in Discord.
I'd rather use HDMI than an app in the middle of that.
Fair enough.
John.
What are you using for screen scrape, Alex?
Oh, we're just doing it's an HDMI. Well, it's actually for ours, it's a display port to HDMI cable that goes into the Blackmagic, the little Blackmagic, just the HDMI to SDI because we're only doing 1080p, and then a SDI out. Yep, that's it. Yep. Next question.
Retro Hoffman says,
Mickey, what were you gonna say, Mickey?
Yeah, just a question. Like for your setup. This might be more of a Brian Maddox question, but for your setup, are you feeding audio through that same HDMI connection out of the computer?
It's all Dante.
Or Dante.
All the machines are on Dante with a USB pre backup into analog into a Rio, and so it's so they're all. So we have a backup of analog because I'm paranoid, but we use Dante for everything. Yeah,
would you know if Brian has to dial in different delays for each machine? Do they vary, or can he just have it on the output bus?
When we get through the production that we're in, we'll get Brian to come in and talk about it.
Yeah,
like Well, but I don't think we have to do delays for each one. It might happen for each person that comes in. I think he may be doing fine adjustments because of every connection. Every person might have a different problem, but it won't be per machine, I don't think. Next question.
Retro Hoffman says, are there any good reasonably priced SDI signal cable analyzers that have amplitude, eye pattern, and jitter and so forth? What are you guys using?
Go ahead, Stuart.
There are none that are reasonably priced, but Tektronix make a really good range of digital oscilloscopes, and you'll find them everywhere in broadcast for looking at SDI signals.
There's one, and I'm just trying to. We'll go to the next question. There's one I've seen on set. Let me see if I can find it really quick. That is, yeah. I'd have to look. There is a single, and I want to call it like a weather. it's like a, I keep wanting to call it like a weather. It's a video thing, but it's like Weatherman or something like that. I keep on thinking it should be a weather device. So I don't remember. I'll look for it again, but it does the, and it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive as the Fabrics. Mostly what we use on site is Fabrics. And those are $7,000 or $8,000 for a little walk around box. And this one is much less expensive. I think it's like $1,000 and it does all the things. And I just can't think of the name of it right now. Mickey?
Wouldn't a company like Fluke have something for this?
Not for SDI that I know of. I haven't seen it. Anyway, next question. We're kind of in a speed round.
Charles Klein in New York City. Alex, you've mentioned doing some HDR work. Are you doing 1,000 nits, 2,000 nits, or did you go all full 4,000 nit Dolby Vision? Also, are you doing a trim pass for SDR?
So the answer is yes. Pipeline, the pipeline, part of the pipeline is 1,000 nits, part of it's Dolby at 4,000 nits. And we are using a FSHDR to push that 1,000 nits back down to 100 nits before we encode it. So we're using something that we can really tweak to make that conversion from HDR to SDR. So those, and again, I'm gonna get to talk about all of those details later, but I can say a little bit that the pipeline is, the live pipeline requires one thing to be in live, and then we get it to, so we have to get through one pipeline live, and then we do another pipeline for the encode. So it's complicated, but yeah, the answer is we're using all of those things. Next question.
James Babbitt in San Diego. What are some affordable PTZ cameras for a house of worship?
What do people have? Go ahead, Jeff.
PTZ optics, kind of the affordable option.
Yep, I think that's probably the one we see the most as far as affordable cameras.
Can you put links in the chat, please?
Yeah, we'll get somebody. Go ahead, Oliver.
I like the Lumens cameras. I think they are the NewTek OEM brand. So
are they? What do they go up to, like 20x or 15x? I mean, what's their zoom?
30x, I think.
Okay.
Is the biggest one you can get, and I think they have about the same price as the PTZ optics.
Next question.
Kev Bruin from the panel in Nottingham, UK. What was your most difficult project clients? How did you deal with it? Mentioning no names.
Does anyone want to go ahead?
Save this one for the production chat, I think. What do you say? There could be a few stories on that.
I think we could have a production night. Here's what we need: we need an hour where we talk about production nightmares, not naming any names, but just talk about challenges that we had. I think that'd be a good second hour just to talk through. Yeah, Stuart.
Back in the days of wedding videos, which I never want to do ever again, the answer was call the police. It was that bad. And yes, there's a really good story, but it takes a long time to tell.
Okay, next question.
George Kennedy from Washington, D.C. on the panel says, Alex, I'm looking at Teranex AV to use my stream output when using hardware encoders. Do you find this to be an effective method to handle delay and final tweaks for the stream only?
Yes, I mean, that's what we use for the most part. I will say that an FS1 or an FS4 or an FS HDR, whatever you're going to use there, is a better solution than the Teranex, but more expensive. So the reason for that is that you can't change delay silently in a Teranex. So when you change that delay, you're going to hear a click. You can definitely do that, change that delay in an FS series, an AJA FS series, without having that problem. So that's just one thing to think about. Also, it's a little easier to bring in lots of analog channels into an FS2 or 4 or whatever than it is to bring into the AV. The AV is really, I just want to insert a stereo input. A lot of times we're doing multi-language. And so you want to be able to bring up to 8 channels into it, and so you have a breakout cable on the back and stuff like that. So there's a couple advantages that the FS has. What I will say, and we haven't tested it again, the FS2 had some serious chroma issues when scaling from 1080i to 720p, and that kept us from that's why we switched away from it for years. I think that has been solved with the FS4 and the FS HDR, which is what we're using now for a bunch of the projects. And so. But I would say our bread and butter converter is a Teranex AV. that's definitely what we do with it. We're using the FS series as for specific needs, and the scaler is nice in it. Next question.
Brent Kruger in Minneapolis says, I know pre-recorded music and so forth is royalty-free in some cases, can trigger takedown of a live feed. What about a live performance from a singer?
You'll be fine.
Yeah, in general, you may get we haven't seen anyone take down the stream. We have seen copyright flags. So, and on YouTube, those are different, very different. They'll flag you and say, hey, we've matched you. If it doesn't take you down, it doesn't take you down. And so a lot of times when we're going to do a live performance or those things, we ask someone to do it, and we go and build an unlisted event, and we play it out, and we loop it for half an hour and watch what happens, and then it will tell us whether we're going to get flagged on it or not. And a lot of times it'll be like a no monetization flag, not a, they just, you can't make money with it, but you don't get a strike either on YouTube. Facebook, I don't know. Victor can tell us whether Facebook's more aggressive. Does it warn you that it's going to kick you out?
No, and not so far. Have had no problems. Now I've done about 40 songs now on YouTube, and I've gotten a flag on every one of those for monetization, but it never goes beyond that. It's just, I expect that it comes in 3 nanoseconds after it gets posted.
Yeah, it really does it quickly. Jeffrey and then Jason.
Yeah, at the beginning when they first started live streaming, if you started doing copyright stuff, they would instantly take down your stream, and people started complaining about that, especially because there was a lot of false positives. So they ended up setting it up so it will not do anything until after the stream is complete, and then it'll take it down, demonetize it, whatever. YouTube's pretty much the same way. Unless you're vagrantly causing copyright issues and people are screaming to the high hilt, then your stream's probably going to stay up until it's done.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jason, and then Victor.
I should qualify my answer. If you have a singer that's singing a cappella, you'll be fine. Really, the issue is the backing track. That's what's going to get you.
Go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, stay away from the Eagles. They have 60 people that do nothing but monitor this stuff. So I will never play an Eagles song.
Yeah, I think you
take it easy, man.
I think we should just all start doing. If they have 60 people just looking for this, we need 120 people all do an Eagles party where we all play Eagles all at the same time, and just do it all day, and just have all these people trying to chase us down.
But they don't flag. They strike. They don't play. They just go right for the
check in, but you can never check out.
Yeah, you can never leave.
Exactly.
You can never leave. The hotel.
Last question from the first hour, but I think these are kind of related because they're all part of the music section here. Go ahead. Last question here.
TJ Asher's in with, what, if anything, do the many musicians on the panel do to protect their hearing?
Go ahead, Mickey.
Oh, I'm not a musician, but one thing for live performances that would really help the ears of musicians is, instead of using live monitor wedges, use in-ear monitors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff, and then Jason.
So I have 2 different sets of earplugs that I recommend. These are the ones that I give to everybody for Christmas. This is the Etymotic Eddy plug. They're about $15 on Amazon, and they do a decent job of reducing frequencies fairly evenly. You can actually play music in these. But then I treated myself to get a custom mold earplug with Etymotic filters in them. So this does a flat 15 dB reduction, and that makes it actually really enjoyable to go to a very loud show.
I'm sending you my house address in the chat. It's Christmas. Christmas is coming.
Post a link.
Jason?
Yeah, as a drummer since maybe the age of 10 and starting to use hearing protection at 13 has really, truly saved my ears. My answer is twofold. First and foremost, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you use. Start using something, and start using something immediately. Etymotics are fantastic. Heroes are extremely inexpensive, and they are absolutely, completely, and totally worth your weight in gold. As far as in-ear monitors like these can damage your hearing too. It's worth mentioning. These can really damage your hearing. So what you do is you set your level when you are at something, you know, in a quiet space or in a space where you know you can set it right, and then you go to the loud event. I shot many events on stage, and I was right next to the monitor. Don't ever use active monitors and set your level on stage. That'll kill you.
The one thing that to also think about is when you're flying is to have something that's either noise canceling or something that will, like I use Etymotics in my ears, and that will eliminate all the exterior sound. And the reason for that is that you won't turn you won't turn it up all the way. And also, if you fly as much as some of us do or did, just the sound of the plane will kill your hearing in a certain place in your hearing, and so you just need to know that's actually pretty loud. You know, the being in the plane, you eagle. Now, I personally, just as a statement, I went to 1,000 shows, probably almost 1,000 shows between the time I was 19 and 22 as a music director for a radio station, and yeah, I didn't use any protection, and now I have a light ring all the time. It's never silent. I don't have any silence. I still hear pretty well. I mean, I have pretty good hearing, but I have tinnitus, and so that's what we're talking to, and that's what I would highly recommend trying to avoid, because it's not something that you can get rid of once you have it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Actually, I'm going to dispute that last statement you had, because there has been some research that says that if you do the right things, you can actually start to heal your ear a little bit. The biggest thing, though, is if you do have no protection, you go running to the bathroom, finding the toilet paper, the stuff in your ears or anything like that. Afterwards, the best thing to do is actually to do heat compresses onto your ears to warm them up and get things working in the right direction.
Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and close that one up, but that was a good question. It was musician related, so we kept it into the second hour there. So we're gonna go ahead and now change our direction, and what we're gonna do is start talking about how to stream for musicians. So what a lot of musicians are trying to figure this out, and what we wanted to do is just have a discussion about what some of the challenges are that are showing up for people, how they're handling them. And how they're going about this process of, I want to stream to my fans, I want to stream to my followers, and I want to get followers, that type of thing. And so we want to talk about pipelines and what people are using and some of the more popular pieces there. So one of the people that has been doing it the most within this panel is Victor. And Victor, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about the pipeline that you've kind of built, both video and audio, for what you're doing.
Sure, and it's been a work in progress. Thanks to this group and some of the members really giving me a huge hand to do it. I was going through Ecamm as my streaming device because it's a pretty easy to use software and pretty darn stable. But the limitations started coming when I'm a one-man show. And so I would start playing and I wanted to switch cameras on the ATEM and I couldn't do it, and so on. So long story short, I moved away from that and I'm going to use QLab. When I play today, you're going to see exactly the workflow that I use when I'm live streaming, which includes all the camera switches, all of the lower thirds popping up, all of that going through the ATEM in QLab using the piece of software that Lawrence all turned us on to the other day. So that's what you'll see when you see me playing. And if later you'd want me to do a screen share and any of that, I'm happy to do it. As far as the cameras, I've got two Blackmagic 4K cameras. This one for the front angle, this one for a little bit wider view here. And then I don't have the Sony A600 that I'm not going to use today. That sits over here on this side. So it's a total of 3 cameras. The fourth input for the ATEM is used as a black background on a screen that is used for Luma, for all the keying. So I can play videos through there. I can do lower thirds. I can do bugs, all of that stuff coming from QLab, and just gets displayed on this camera, which you see is just a black screen. So this has worked very well now. I think I've done 4 shows with it, and all the shows have 4 songs. The way it's laid out in QLab, it's just basically 1 song queue at a time. That queue consists of...
Can you show us, are you able to do a screen capture of QLab to show us how you set that up?
Absolutely.
And you're getting the audio in via your ATEM?
No, the audio is coming in out of, excuse me, Audio Hijack Pro through the MixPre. So it goes from my microphones in the MixPre. The sax has one mic, my vocal has another mic, and then it comes out of that into.
Are you able to? Are you in the same computer where you could open up in front of this the audio hijack just to show us what that? Are you using loopback as well, or just audio hijack?
No, let's do the miracle Mickey setup for audio hijack, which is really complex on this one. This is my vocal microphone coming through an EQ and a limiter. This is my hardware piece that I use for monitoring the LUFS. I've got a recorder, and then that comes out to my Zoom mic process chain that you guys are hearing me in. So that's channel 3. Channel 4 is my saxophone. I'm not using delays on any of these. Again, a separate EQ for my saxophone. I've got a volume here. Really, we used it more as a spacer when we were building this because you guys know what a nightmare it can be to build these chains, and this one certainly was. A limiter here. This is the fab filter limiter. Just making sure things are around -16 is how I want the music, although I've lowered it for today's performance. This is a reverb by Fab Filter, and I've got some equalization on the reverb part as well because the saxophone can be very harsh. And then this is being outputted to a second audio card that I use in my Thunderbolt 3 hub so that I can control my reverb through the MixPre. So if I want more reverb on my headphones or less, that's how it controls it here. This branch is the reverb you hear, and then this volume is the wet dry factor of that reverb, how much of the reverb the audience is getting. Again, goes to my Clarify so I can view the volume levels, and then out the same chain.
And what's happening here right now is that you've got the second chain is only for the music, and then you have another chain that you can talk into. That's what we're doing now.
Right. The first chain is my microphone. The second chain is my saxophone microphone, which is nothing's happening. And then there's one more. But wait, there's more. This is the music playback chain. It comes out of QLab. I do have an 80 millisecond delay on that I found was necessary for me to be able to stay in sync with the music. Again, I have my Clarify there so I can look up my hardware to see the levels of the music. And then again, up to the volume, main volume, and out. So there's actually 3 different chains happening in this very complex audio hijack chain that Mickey and I think we spent 3 hours putting it together.
Did you want to add anything, Mickey, to it, or is it? Did you have
Mickey,
else
talk about the routing. Talk about the routing in the MixPre because, as you guys know, it confuses me, but it doesn't confuse Mickey.
Nah. Well, I mean, what in terms of routing within the MixPre, like say if you have like a board, you have a QL5, you have a more substantial board. It's like getting this done would be nothing, because you do your routing like I want this channel to go to this bus and also this bus and also this bus, and then you have different auxes that you can tweak how much send you can do. But with the MixPre, what makes it a little tougher is like at least with Victor's use case is that it's not really meant to do this. So we're kind of like jury rigging a setup that would allow the MixPre to handle all the routing that Victor needs for his streams. So the complexity just comes with the limitation. If we had a big board, it would be really easy. This would be a relatively simple setup for a big board. Within Audio Hijack, they could do so much better in terms of how you route things, like the whole magnet, like you having those little nodes that automatically magnetically link to each other. That's horrible. I just want like how loopback works. Just draw a line from here to here.
Right. And then Victor, you're using how are you using QLab?
Okay, so here's the 2 songs that might perform today, are going to perform today, and then so I basically just have 2 containers, if you will, and the first item in that is the song itself. And the first thing that I go into the audio levels, and just I can adjust those audio levels. Then I go into this here, and you'll see the green markers. The first thing I do is I listen to the song, and I hit M for marker anywhere that I want an event to happen, a camera change, for example. So I go ahead and mark this out, by the beat of the music or whatever it happens to be. And then I'll show you how we use that in a second. If I go back here, then you can see in the timeline, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, that for that song, those are my markers. And these are the automation that is going to do. I can say, okay, I want to start with camera 4, and I want there to be a lower third. This is just a reminder for me to turn my vocal mic off. And then here it's going to do a switch to camera 1, camera 4, camera 1, camera 4, camera 1, and then I'm going to display my lower third towards the end of the song again. So programmatically, this is how it's stepping through all of that. And I'll show you how we do one of those camera changes is right here. We just set the ATEM program 4, and then ATEM OCS goes ahead and performs that. In ATEM OCS, I have a list of every command that I can send through here. So, if I wanted to do the super source, or if I wanted to do something else, I can look up the command, copy it, and simply paste it here, and it sends it out of the network. And it really does work pretty darn well that way. And then you go ahead and just build out your thing. At the end, right here, it will just stop. And then I proceed to my second cue, in this case, the second song.
Courtney, you had a question?
Yeah, so all the automation is being driven off of the playback track that you were accompanying live. If you don't have a playback track, if you got a whole, let's say, band there assembled, or can QLab play off of just a running timecode track, or do you have to generate a click track to drive all your cues, or how's that handled?
No, it would be able to do it anyways. And again, it's not so much that the automation is being driven by the music track. It's just when events happen, is being driven by when I set those markers. That's the only difference. But
yeah, that was the question. What is the time constant used for determining when marker B or C hits?
I would have to refer to Lawrence on that one, but I could use other triggers.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's in that pre-wait, right? That you have there, or maybe not.
Yes, you could do a pre-wait. Absolutely, you can do a post-wait, and you can also use.
But I'm saying if we look at the actions that are there if we actually look right above in the container, those pre-waits are. I believe that those waits are related to when, how long that activation is going to happen. Right, it's going to wait for 21 seconds to do that thing, the next thing.
So there's serial events with timers in between, then, in other words. Yeah,
and you could use timecode. Here's a timecode trigger right here.
And they're really, I believe that they are. And yeah, it can be getting timecode and just taking that time. You could be feeding it timecode through LTC and then just having it just go, when I see that timecode, I'm going.
Yep.
So it doesn't, you don't need to have anything else there. It's a pretty powerful tool. Victor, can you show it to us in action?
Sure. Let me get the best part of this is a saxophone. It's totally analog, and it hardly ever breaks down. Would you like to hear a song? Is that what you're asking, Alex?
Yeah, play the song.
All right, I'm going to mute my mic because it's what I always forget to do. And again, what you're going to see is exactly what would happen in one of my live streams as far as what's being done by what. Here we go.
Before you start, Victor. Everybody that has the screen on 320 mode or smaller, make it full size. And there's a reason why. We found this out when we tested last week. The frame rate actually drops if you're not in full screen on Victor. So you'll get like 11 to 12 frames a second as opposed to 30.
Thank you for that. This first song is a song by my friend Troy Dexter, who happens to be the guy who plays the organ on the OH theme. He is an incredible guitarist, and this is from his album called Shop Talk, being played with permission from the artist. He is just an amazing keyboardist as well as a guitarist. He plays with Wilson Phillips. This is called La Distiladera. Yeah. There you go. Thank you, guys.
Music feeds my soul.
Alex,
yeah, go ahead.
I could listen to that all day.
That was great. Yeah, it's great work, Victor. Great work. And
well, thanks. Hopefully, all the lower thirds worked, and all the camera moves worked, and everything. And you guys were.
It
able
all
to
did.
see
I just wanted more. Just wanted more camera moves, more camera shots, more just cut them. But what's fascinating about that is with the backing track or a click track or whatever you have there, is you really could rehearse it and just keep adding stuff like right on this bar, right on this beat, right on whatever. I know that I'm going to want to cut to this thing, to this thing, to this thing, to this thing, and all you're doing is playing the thing that you're going to be listening to. Even if if the audience doesn't hear it, you're hearing it, something that gets you lined up with it. And what I like about it not being a time code and being or not being of having something that's giving the artist reference in their ear is that they can, where it's going to be, but you can sit there and talk, like right now you're talking to us, and then you go back to playing it, and as soon as you play it, so it doesn't mean you have to do something that's pre-programmed for an hour and a half. You're doing something that's pre-programmed for that moment.
Yeah,
and then
that's just one cue, basically.
And you hit that cue, and then you're off to the races, and it can be, and remember that it could be like also, I mean, we're not talking about the fact that QLab can run lights, and they could, you could have lights that are changing, and you could have, other graphics that are popping up, especially in the longer part where you were kind of listening to the music there.
The solos, yeah.
There could be lower thirds, there could be extra messages, there could be all kinds of other stuff. Go ahead, John, and then Stuart.
Was that the same fly from last night? Because he flew right onto your reed. And...
Oh, no, don't go there.
This fly, I swear to you, I am not kidding. It sits on my music stands and listens to me rehearse.
There's a trick. There's a trick to flies. Our Buddhist friends will not appreciate. The trick to flies in studios is the electric fly swatter. It's got a button on it, and it's basically a bug zapper in a fly swatter, so you don't have to hit things. You just get it over top of it with it on, and they take off, and that's the end of it. And I literally often have them in studios or in Rwanda. I sleep with one. I get under the net and I swing it around and get rid of all the mosquitoes. And then
they really do work, though. No joke, they work.
Incredibly smells a little bit, a little like burnt fly, but outside of that, it's nothing like a little ozone in the morning. Anyway, so Stuart.
I have a Mozzie doing the same thing at the moment. Victor, was that a baritone sax and a trombone in the background track? And were you playing the baritone?
No to both questions. It was a baritone and tenor in the background, and this was recorded in LA last year, and I was not there to play on it, unfortunately, although I could have done it virtually.
Right. I go to Jeff.
Victor, can you share your Zoom audio settings so we can all see what you're doing? And then you're muted, but your sync is beautiful.
Sure. Happy to do it. Hold on. Let me go back to my screen.
I think in the screen share, you have to set it up to share Zoom. Otherwise, Zoom disappears.
I think I can do it. Okay. Are you seeing it, or no, you're seeing it?
No, we see the ATEM OSC really close.
Really well. Really well. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Okay, do you see that now? It's nothing special. It's just coming out of the Audio Hijack Pro, that chain that you saw. It ended with Zoom mic process, which is a loop back that we pass through that I created. And so it just comes out of there.
Can you show loop back? Do you have loop back?
I can get to it.
Before you leave there, will you go down to the advanced settings?
Yes, of course.
Because this is really important for music.
Okay, high fidelity music, use stereo audio. So both of those are definitely on.
And the disable audio cancellation, you can get away without turning that off if you just wear an earpiece, because it won't activate. Although I would typically, if I know I'm going to do it, I would typically turn that off. I would disable echo cancellation to make sure that there's no processing there. But you can generally, it won't affect your audio if you do have an earpiece in.
Sorry, Vic. There was one more on the previous page.
Sure. Hold on. Let me get to it.
That is the noise suppression. The default setting for Zoom is auto, but there is a low. There's not an off, but there is a low setting, and they recommend the low setting for music.
Now, doesn't original audio, and so original audio doesn't just bypass that?
It does not. If you see it right below your input volume, there's suppressed background noise. A little bit farther down, Victor.
And Victor's is set to low.
Yeah, if you look at the little question mark next to that, or actually it says it right below it, that you should set that to low for music.
Yes.
Right.
And
these are some of the new changes in the latest version of Zoom.
And it's pretty exciting. I mean, it really vaulted Zoom to probably what I would recommend as the best solution right now if you wanted to do a little concert for folks. It's a great solution.
Before you get into loopback, I was looking as Victor was playing at the statistics on the audio receive, and I was seeing 48 kilohertz. Actually, I was seeing 16, 24, and 48 kilohertz. So I thought that was kind of interesting that I was seeing, not just seeing 48 kilohertz, which should have been Victor's setting, but I did notice that one other person's mic was unmuted. So I'm wondering if that was what was causing the 16 to come in.
No, that's not the case. We tested that exclusively when I was working with Victor. It's literally the gallery mode versus the panel mode in this case.
If you go to only panel mode, or if you turn it off and just go to full screen, you go to 48.
No. It'll bounce between the three depending on who you are. If you're a panelist, we can get it up to 48. But if you're just a guest, then you might get a 2416. Or if your computer can't produce 48 kilohertz sound, then it'll bounce it down. So it's a variable thing depending on where you are and what you're using.
So I have a question along those lines. If I'm using a second screen and that second screen is full screened, does it really matter what I'm doing on the primary display?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I just thought I'd ask.
Let's go back to
and
the
is that
MixPre.
changing sound, or is that just picture?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's just picture. I do think that when you see that slash, it means it's delivering it in a couple different ways. And I think that, Jeff, you may be on to something with, I think that the mic, I think my mic was open for a little bit. And so, or for, while I was testing stuff. And so I think that it could be that you are getting something different if someone's mic is open. Let's look at loopback.
So at Loopback, we created a sound card, QLab 2 Audio Hijack Pro. It just has a pass through here. But then here it just goes
So the important thing here is that what Loopback is being used for is to pull the QLab audio that's been all mixed and provide it as an available output to Zoom. Is that right?
100%. That's exactly what's happening. And then here, just goes through channels 1 and 2. But here, when you see it go to channels 3 and 4, that is being routed back through the ATEM, to the second sound card, my CalDigit Thunderbolt. And that is being fed just wet reverb, just 100% wet reverb. And then that goes back into my MixPre, and on channel 5 and 6 auxiliary channels, I'm able to then turn my reverb on my own headphones, not for you, up and down to as wet or as dry as I want for my.
So you can just listen to you just want to feel like you're there. It's all about the feeling at that point, right? You just want to hear it.
Yeah, singers,
That's
musicians in general, it's like more verb, man. I want to feel it. I want to feel the vibe, So I like hearing the reverb, but I don't like sending you guys too much reverb. The next song that I'm going to do, or when I do my next song, it's a ballad. So I will go into I will go into the audio hijack chain, and I will raise that reverb from about 48% in volume to about 61, because I want it to be a little more emotive in a ballad.
You're good. Courtney?
Yeah, one question I don't think I saw in the demo is how your in-ear monitors are getting their sound so that you can monitor both the track and yourself and your super mixed reverb.
Well, that's what's happening here, right?
That's Loopback. Is that the channel 3 and channel 4 that I see in the MixPre 6?
The channel 3 and channel 4 are going to that second sound card, and I'm just simply plugged into the MixPre's headphone jack. And we've created, again, thanks to Mickey, we created a headphone mix on the MixPre that it contains both my horn, my vocal mic, my reverb, and the music coming out.
And to be clear though, you're not going out to be a USB back to the, or you're not going back USB to the MixPre. You have another output. Is that correct?
Well, yes, I do have another output, but it's connected to USB for the computer, which is where the music's coming from. But the output also can go to my ATEM, but we're not using the ATEM for audio.
What goes back into the MixPre though, is it going straight when it's monitoring? You're going straight via USB back to the MixPre on channels 3 and 4, or is there anything in between?
No, straight through.
Okay.
And that's where internally in the MixPre is where you're mixing your headphone mix for your in-ear monitors, right?
Yeah, maybe Mickey can talk a little bit about how he designed that part of it, because I had nothing to do with it.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, so on the MixPre, we created a custom headphone preset which included Victor's mic, his actual vocal mic, his sax mic, and also the music coming from QLab, and with that additional sound card that he's using with the aux input on the 3.5 millimeter connection, the wet verb. So all of those are on post fade sends going to his headphones, and that's how he gets to monitor
And
the
then they all go.
yeah.
They all go through here. There's just a little tiny mixer for the
that's connected to your MixPre so that you can play with it.
Correct.
Yeah,
and that's
one
the next piece I want to automate. I want MixPre to let me automate through MIDI muting volume changes and stuff, and then I would be golden.
Victor, we were seeing that in the panelist view, but we weren't seeing that on the main output. I think it's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's because I'm still sharing. Let me stop.
You're still sharing, yeah.
Yeah, let me stop the share. Thanks. Thank you so much, Bill. So this is it. This is the Korg Control 2, Nano Control 2, and this is what is allowing me to do all the mixing and muting and all of that. I think Sound Devices has 3 or 4 of these controllers that it can see.
Good, Mickey.
Yeah, one thing with having a controller on the MixPre line, it actually allows you to do more things with it. Like, for example, the MixPre 6 has 4 XLR ins, 4 faders, physical faders on the actual unit. But if you have a controller with more than 4 faders on it, like the Nano Control that Victor has, it gives you access to controlling an additional 2 channels of input. And those 2 channels could either be like the aux in that Victor's using. It could also be a USB source that comes from the computer. And having an external external controller gives you access to actually controlling that extra 2 channels.
That's great.
Also, I want to mention that, Alex, you had mentioned that during the time when I was listening to the solos. Normally, I do put my social links there, subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to be the big pimp today and be pimping out my show, so I left that stuff out of this particular.
Oh, perfect. No, it's good. That's good. Stuart, go ahead. And then we're going to go to questions.
Mickey, does the controller work the same when the MixPre 3 is being used as a recorder, like out on set? Or is it only when it's interfaced with the computer like this?
It works every time. Like, it is essentially controls the mixer part of the unit. So whether you're mixing on location without the computer or you're mixing a show,
so it's like getting the
and using it,
or the extra add-on for the Sound Devices 788.
Yeah, the CL8 or the CL9. Yeah, the same thing. It's just a controller.
Chris, real quick, and then we'll go to questions that have been submitted.
Yeah, I heard, I don't know what everybody else's experience was. I heard a lot. I mean, I could hear the quality of the backing track and of Victor's playing, but I also heard continuous micro dropouts the entire time.
I heard those too. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just me. Is that a Zoom thing or?
Yeah, we're trying to do stuff that.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Do stuff that's, yeah, absolutely. It's still.
Does that mean no one's going to be?
Progress.
Does that have to do with the fact that we have a big meeting here, or is that the fact that we're just doing this on Zoom at all?
I don't know. Sometimes I've heard it be really, really clean, and sometimes it's dropped out a little bit. Yeah, it's definitely.
Is it our local
tiny?
Our local connections, or do you think it's coming from the Zoom?
No, I think that. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Remember that we're interacting with each other at about 250 milliseconds, and when you watch it on YouTube, you're of delay, and when we're watching it on YouTube, we're watching it at somewhere between 8 and 22 seconds. So there's tons of time for YouTube to clean that all up on the way there to make sure that it does. Yeah. Well, it's just that it has all the time to kind of go back and get those packets. Mm-hmm. If in a real-time environment like Zoom, if the packet's missing, it's just missing, like because it's going by so fast. It's all in real time. The reason that you have a buffer in YouTube, like when you go to low latency mode in YouTube, they're not doing anything different. Now, when you go to ultra low latency, they're going to lower resolution, and the reason that they're doing that is to make sure that you have a better chance of getting all the packets. When you're going to low latency, all they did is they took away your safety blanket or your kind of your safety room. So the difference between low latency and regular latency is the buffer. Like it just turns off the buffer, or it shortens that buffer down to 8 to 10 seconds instead of 19 to 22 seconds, so that because that 19 to 20, that extra 10 seconds is all like, hey, I didn't get that packet. Can I get that packet? Like, or I have enough time to kind of go in there and pull it all in, because what's typically being delivered to you in YouTube is HLS. So it's just grabbing, it's being, having time to grab those packets and take its time to grab onto them. So go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, and with YouTube, you have a receive, but you don't have a send. So as it's trying to keep as real time as possible. You'll notice at the beginning of the video, when Victor starts to play, that's when you'll see the most skips. And I think that's also because of some of the suppressive nature that Zoom does have in there. But yeah, every now and then it'll just try to catch up to itself.
Yeah.
So if we go back and listen to the YouTube recorded version of this, we shouldn't hear those dropouts.
No, you still hear it because it's in a real-time environment when it was recorded. So it's not,
it's coming,
it's an entirely different pipeline. Yeah, Zoom is still in real time, and then it's sending it out. Okay, we're gonna go to some of the questions that people are submitting here real quick. James Babbitt says, Victor, how do you acquire the music accompanying as you play the saxophone? Do you record the music accompanying for? How did you get that music?
In this case, this is literally stems from Troy's album that he sent me for that song. And so I created a mix without his lead guitar, replacing it with me. When I'm doing the sax jams, which is, music you've all heard, I use some karaoke sites. Sometimes I do MIDI myself and mix them, but some of the karaoke sites are just really excellent. And what I do is I take popular songs that I like, Steely Dan or whatever, and I just put sax to them, that's it, but if I'm doing like traditional jazz or something like that, oftentimes then I will make a track and ask Troy, hey, would you play piano for me on this thing? And he'll ship it to me. He'll ship me back the track, and then I'll put in the other instrument.
That's great. Next question is from Tim Erskine. He said, I produce a performance music show that's on YouTube. Does anybody have a good strategy to market it? I've only used a Facebook page to market it, and I only get about 12,000 views a month. The number one thing is, I guess what I would say is number one thing is repetition and quality. I haven't seen yours. I'm sure it's good, but it's people knowing it's there. And then I'll still say for live, it's if you're doing live performances, interactivity, finding ways to talk to people is really important. Go ahead, Kev.
I was just thinking, move your fan base to Instagram, because that seems to be where the audiences are nowadays, more so than Facebook.
You just want to make sure that when you think about Facebook, YouTube, it depends on what you're measuring the total number of views or measuring average view time. So I only measure average view time. So just be clear. I don't look at the numbers as much as I look at how long people watched. If I can't generate 15 minutes of average view time in something, I'm not doing something right, in my opinion. And even, and so it's, for a longer piece, event, I want to see that. I want to see people that are sticking. Then it's just a function of getting the word out. If people are actually watching, the problem with Instagram and Facebook is that you're competing with a feed. So you may see a whole bunch of views, like this person got 2 million views, but those 2 million views was for like 20 seconds. They got on there, they went, oh, this is really cool. This is what happens when they're playing. Oh, this is really cool. And they watch it, and then it gets a little slow for a second, and then they're off to something else. And that's not building a meaningful relationship. It's getting big numbers, and stars think it's really cool, but it's not really a meaningful relationship with the user. Go ahead, John.
Plus one on what Alex just said. I'm working with a couple of local bands here in Vegas. Some of the AV shops here converted and put stages in their warehouses because they're not doing anything, and they're inviting these bands to come play, and then they'll push it up on YouTube, and they'll get 10, 12, 15 viewers. Engaging that audience with interactivity and talk, just like we do here in office hours, hearing the stories behind the songs, way, way more interesting than me listening to a song, because I rarely listen to music anymore.
Yeah, to me, that's the money. Go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, two things. First of all, you're absolutely correct when it comes to basically the long form being a non-starter. I've been publishing the entire jam sessions on YouTube. My view time is very short, so I'm going to start cutting the songs into individual ones and just post them as individual posts, because I think I don't know if
that's I don't know if I would say that. I think that it's just a matter of figuring out how you generate a conversation, with it. Now you're adding sax. I mean, I think having a conversation with folks, you can do long form for a lot of things. Now you may want to cut those performances up so people can just watch the performances, or have a playlist that's just your performances, and that might make sense. But I think that when you're doing live and you're trying to engage, I mean, what we're doing here, is a conversation. Like I don't have any.
That's what I do on Facebook for sure. I mean, John Brado has been to almost all of them, and in between songs, I thank people.
That's the whole thing.
And I mention their name. I tell them about the next song I'm going to play, why I picked it, that kind of stuff, and that is really fun for me as a performer, because it gives me the presence of a real audience.
And I think it also gives for performers who are trying to figure out what they should do next, right? Playing all of their best hits every week is not something that is compelling. You're not going to get repeat business. We've had corporations that had us stream their tour, right? But the tour is the same. In Pittsburgh, it's the same as New York, is the same as Boston. Why would people watch that over and over again? And so it's how do you build something that, and so for bands, I could spend an hour. In an hour, I can play 12 songs, on average. Or I could play 3 songs and talk about them. And as a viewer, I would much be more likely to come and watch you talk about them than 3 songs. And I would come every week to get 3 more songs from you and have you talk about what the thought process was and everything else. And that's what I thought we were with Daria, with Brian Vander Ark, with Peter Hillman. They only played 2 songs. Victor's going to play another song in a second, but it's the story. It's why that I think is important. That's what makes it different than just listening to it. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So yeah, my band, we've done several. We're calling them stay-at-home shows, and they're online. I can show them to you if you want to see them. But the point is that what we've done in all the stay-at-home shows, and all the musicians that I've talked to that do something very similar, including a friend of mine who does an 80s band, he got on every single night in the first two or 3 months before he started getting able to play again. But every song that we did, we never did the same song twice, basically. Right. So we could keep the people engaged. So we could have videos that in the end that would be like all of our library. And we even threw in a couple songs that we've never played before. Like for instance, one comes to mind was Paul Simon's. I can't think of the name of the song, but it's the Hit the Road Jack, Go Back, Stand, whatever. Anyway, yep. The whole point is that a little bit of variety. And one more thing is just basically pushing it out to your friends. We have 4 members in our band. All 4 of us went on Facebook and said, hey, we're going to be playing this. And we had some great turnouts at the end of our shows.
We're going to move on just real quick. We want to get a couple more songs in and get another song in here. So Ed Willock said, Victor, it appears we have original sound on and Alex enabled stereo here in Zoom. Do you find that other platforms you stream to are folding your stereo feed into mono? If so, are they doing a sum of left and right or left only, some other fold down? Do you have separate mono feed anywhere?
I have seen some for sure on Facebook, and the audio quality is nowhere near what you guys are hearing. Trust me, it's not terrible. And again, when I post to YouTube, I'm editing video, and I have recorded all of this into my MixPre, and then I am editing the music, adding the I record everything dry, so I basically reproduce the tracks on my Logic, and then I put that into the video.
Yeah. Next question is from Roscoe. A la teleprompter last-minute fixes. Can you show how you changed QLab to not show the lower thirds today? The extra stuff. Did you just take it out?
I did a save as. I took it out and just saved it as a show specifically for this. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Just show them click, 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 and gone.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about QLab is that I basically set up a template. So for the next show, all I have to do is just put in the new music, put in my new markers, and then move my flags wherever I want from my camera moves. So it's like in 10 minutes, I can basically build a show.
It's amazing. Marty Atlas said, why would someone want to listen to a different mix than what they're broadcasting? So you just like the really wet mix.
Oh, as a musician? Yeah, sometimes you just want a little bit more emotion. I mean, the regular mix is there. I literally just have a slider for
Yeah.
the reverb. That's all.
A bunch of us, we're talking about that. We're working on some stuff in the future, and there was a big discussion about having open speakers and everything else. Because I was a little like, why don't we just put everybody on headphones? And they're like, well, the musicians need to feel it, and if they feel like they're at a big show and they can hear it, that's a there's something about that gets them grooving more than if they were just doing it in a cold environment. Jeffrey, real quick, we're gonna go to the
Yeah,
next
that's one big problem, especially playing in a band. And I'm using electronic drums, so there is no vibration that's coming through the floorboards. My guitar player wants to not want to use ears; he wants to use a wedge, and we don't want to have any type of reverb in that because we want to hear each other rather than have it sound its best to. And so that mix goes out to you, and then what we can hear is a pretty dry signal.
Eddie Scott said, could you hook a foot switch to cue the actions in the QLab script?
You don't need to. You can literally trigger them in a bunch of different ways so that they just go automatically.
But you could have they go
sure.
automatically. If you wanted to have a foot switch in there, you could absolutely do that. You could have QLab looking at the temperature, and it cuts to a different cam every time it hits 71 degrees. It's just a matter of getting data and setting up a queue.
I just hit the space bar to go, and if something goes terribly wrong, I hit the escape key, and it'll fade the queue.
I bet you could get Alexa to do it too. Like, Alexa, start the song, and you could probably build a skill that would just go down that path. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, way back when in the stick cam era of things, I did a whole bunch of live mixing and did it every single day. That was the hit count thing, is you have to be obsessed with it at the beginning. But to answer the question, you can absolutely switch a show with a foot switch. That's exactly how I did it while I was mixing.
And Jason, I don't think that doing a daily show would be sustainable live.
Probably not, but I had nothing else to do.
Kidding. I'm just kidding. That's what we've been doing for 199 shows. This is 198 shows straight. So
that'll never work.
Yeah,
this guy named Leo Laporte apparently,
exactly. Anyway, Victor, go ahead real quick.
Just real quick. Through MIDI, if I wanted to, I could engage a cue by playing a certain chord. I could just say, when you hear G sharp minor flat 7, boom, go to this video or whatever.
That's awesome. Oliver asks, Victor, can you make QLab call an HTTP address?
I don't know. Roscoe might know. He uses. He's a big. Is he still
go ahead,
here?
Roscoe.
Yeah, I sent him the link, and it doesn't do exactly what Oliver wants it to do. But you can talk to the network. Yes, it's just a question. He needs it in a specific form, HTTP request to obviously, I think, to trigger something in Mimo Live.
Yeah, I mean, the program I'm using for the ATEM OSC, that is using the network. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, but I'm sure it can be worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a kind of a Swiss Army knife there. Last question here, and then Victor's going to close it out. Monetization. I play for a living. This is from Michael Vosbein. Right now, I would say that the most successful for folks that aren't selling big things or whatever is Patreon. My disclaimer is that I do events for Patreon. So I deal with a lot of artists that are doing really well, and some of them are doing medium well, and some of them are doing kind of well. But there's a lot of people who are, small amounts of. You build that relationship with live events, and then you have people, giving you money in small amounts. That's the number one place. I haven't seen anybody do it consistently and reliably other than that platform. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
There are two things. First of all, a lot of the dueling pianos are doing this. There's a third-party app where they can that you attach to Facebook, where they can do a song request. So you pay, you buy coins, and then you use those coins to request songs. There's also another website, and I'm trying to find it really quick. I used to be on it, and they did the exact same thing. They've been around for many years, and you basically buy coins. And then the live streamers will go on, and then they'll play, and then you just throw coins as tips to them.
Well, Musical.ly used to do that before TikTok, and you can do live. By the way, you can go live on TikTok, and but you have to use the stupid phone thing. But you can go live on TikTok, and people can throw tips at you. That's an old Musical.ly platform process. So those are a couple. Victor, we're running out of time, and I want to hear one more song from Victor. Because I have a hard out.
6 minutes long, so
6. So I'm gonna I'm gonna watch the recording, Victor, because I'm gonna watch a little bit of the beginning, and then I have a 9 o'clock that I'm doing there, so I'm gonna let Mickey close it out. But before we get started, then I'm gonna have you go over a little top, and I just want to thank you so much, Victor, for sharing what you're doing and sharing the music, and it was just amazing.
My
So
pleasure. My pleasure.
It's really
This
really great
song-
to have you here.
This song is the last song on the Surrender CD. I've put out a link. You can have it for free. It's my gift to you. It's Makana. This is a ballad called Tu Tambien, which means you too. The inspiration for me to write this song meant that you too can have happiness. You too can have the good things in life. So tu también puedes tener todo. I hope you enjoy this ballad. right, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks,
my,
Victor.
my soul is so full.
That
My
was
wife
great,
was
Victor.
watching me
Thank
from
you.
over there. Oh,
Just
thank you.
beautiful. Just beautiful. And great, Jason, for the virtual lighter.
Oh, that was real.
Thank you, guys.
I put
That was a-
$5 in the
I
tip
know,
jar,
but
you know.
you're sending it out virtual, a real lighter. Nicely done.
So how was the mix on that one, you guys?
Beautiful.
Fine.
Yeah,
It was
the
good?
stereo
Okay.
imaging was really good on the track, and you were mixed right in the middle with the right amount of reverb. And
Good. You know, that is the hardest part for me about doing this is that I just don't know for sure. I record myself 100 times before a show and listen back so I can get kind of an idea, but I never really know what you guys are hearing. Thank you for putting up with me, and I hope you enjoyed the workflow. I think that's
it's
a
lovely.
good combination of the two. Thank you.
Great show. Mickey, we're over time. You want to?
Hit it with
Alrighty.
Victor's music.
Say goodnight, folks.
Oh, I'm not prepped for that. I was busy watching and listening.
We
But-
completely understand you getting lost in the
That's
music.
okay.
That's the power of music. Nice.
But yeah, come in tomorrow. Tomorrow we are talking about what happens right before the show starts. More production talk tomorrow.
I mean, total chaos, huh? Oh.
Yes, without any four-letter words.
Ooh, going to be a
tough
very
one.
short show.
So I guess that's it for everybody. I guess we're just ready to sleek off into the ether. Everybody, tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock for the regular stuff, and we'll see you all then.
Take care.
Becky.
Bye.